Hello, Narnach here. Welcome back to Path of Exile. We are no longer playing in the hardcore Breach League. Instead, we are now in Standard League because, of course, last episode we died. We're playing as a solo self-found character in Breach League. And now that we are in Standard League, of course, our stash now contains all of the junk that has been collecting over time. Because solo self-found is not an official part of the game yet. That's gonna start next patch in 2.6 with Legacy League. So I'm gonna continue as a sort of hybrid solo self-found. I'll be using currency, and as you can see, I'm not terribly rich. I think I'm actually richer in hardcore Breach League than in standard here. I do have more scrolls. That's of course because most of the currency in Standard League I've been investing in my Toxic Viking, my Lacerator character. That character is wearing 8 or 9 exalts worth of gear, and everything has been going in there. So that is not a big change. I didn't have the world in currency there, don't have the world of currency here. I'm not going to trade for this character. Of course, we lost our mapping pool, so I will be using the mapping pool that I have on standard. And as you can see, we have maps up until tier 13 here, where with hardcore Breach League, we had a couple of tier 7 and maybe 1 or 2 tier 8 maps. But it was tier 5 and tier 6 that I had quite a lot unlocked, and I wanted to get some more tier 6 and tier 7s, build up a proper base before pushing forward. Because we now have access to a larger mapping pool, it means we can actually just move forward in map tiers at an increased pace. So before, I was intending to, if possible, do about 3 or 4 maps of every tier and then push forward another tier, and then just do a bunch of map farming in between in order to increase the size of the mapping pool. Now we have access to a mapping pool that we can basically plunder at will in order to push forward. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. We're gonna advance at an increased rate. Maybe do 2 of every map tier, pick out a couple of interesting ones, and then advance and see how far we can push our build, basically using the gear we have. So, this being standard, I've got quite some stash tabs filled with uniques of all kinds of levels. There's actually not a lot of interesting uniques for the build. I did have a quick look over it, especially the high-end ones. There's nothing truly relevant. But no, at the lower levels, I think I might have a Boots of Uller, for example, somewhere. I think I actually recognized them on site, but this one. So, for example, the Bones of Uller, they would technically be useful because we get more zombies, we get more specters, things like that. But I'm choosing to not use any of the items. So we're just going to use the map items, we're going to use the currency, and we're just going to go forward. I don't expect to find a lot more gear increases, gear upgrades. So we're just going to see basically how far can we push with the gear we have. Our Fuse and Jewelers situation is slightly healthier than on hardcore Breach, but yeah, turning this 5 link into 6 link is going to be a small miracle. So for now I think I'm just going to leave it as it is, and we're going to push forward. So, long intro and transition out of the way. Let's run a map. Gonna run a cells map, which has quite a long list of modifiers. So, we get Desecrated Ground, more rare mobs with a Nemesis mod. We are cursed with Enfeeble, so basically if we were attacking we would be hitting nothing, doesn't matter. -7 to maximum player resistances, that is gonna hurt. And the important bit here is that our fire resistance is gonna drop from 75% down to 68%. And the boss is Megara, the Fire Witch, who hurts a lot. On top of that, the boss has more life, so it's gonna take us longer to take the boss out. And the boss has an increased area of effect. And because the boss uses a pretty strong fire range skill, this is going to be relevant. And on top of that, monsters have a chance to cause status ailments. So this is a very nice map to get started with. The upside, of course, of being in Standard League is that death no longer really holds meaning for us, so we can be a bit more aggressive when pushing forward. That said, as you can see, I just ran the cells as a blue map, and that worked out rather fine. So we're gonna see how it works in here. The more normal monsters are not gonna be the danger. The boss in cells is the true danger. So let's see how we deal with Megara. Of course, because we have both life and energy shields, and we use Zealot's Oath, so we don't actually have a life regen, we will have to be careful with our positioning in order to not degenerate our health with the chaos stuff. Also, we can already see that we're taking damage and we've already lost 2 zombies. The enemies are gonna hurt, and as such, let's be careful. Or at least let's keep an eye on for our zombie count. That's maybe a better way to put it. It's always useful to be careful. That's just a dead end. The fact that we are maxed out on our chaos resistance does help when dealing with this desecrated ground. No, if we take 75% less chaos damage, then of course the desecrated ground is 75% less dangerous as well. Let's keep pushing along the edges here. Looks like a neat way to do things. So starting with next league, of course, the solo self-found league will be official, and there's gonna be a solo self-found version of both the regular hardcore and standard leagues. So after a league ends, all the currency from there, after a solo self-found temporary league ends, all the currency and everything is of course going to move to the solo self-found permanent leagues. So yeah, then also if we die as solo self-found hardcore, we're gonna go to solo self-found standard. So we basically have the option of just continuing solo self-found even in death, while right now that's a bit trickier to do. Storm Heralds can be rather dangerous. But because we have so many distractions walking around, it's in our favor, because the damage is just going to get divided amongst all of our minions. And because they all have fairly decent regeneration, they actually have a pretty good chance of surviving. Okay, this Rakango needs to go. Upside of one of these very nice large rooms is that we can just cause clouds everywhere. Things will just die. And our minions will look for the enemies. Kind of funny, the corridor passage here with all the desecrated ground in here really reminds me of some of those ethereal corridors in Grim Dawn. Now there's also pathways that have just been completely covered in ethereal, that game's version of chaos damage basically. So they also have chaos, but boss fight. But visually it's a very strong reminder. So we're gonna go into the boss fight. The experience so far has been that our minions are just simply gonna die. And Chaos Clouds, it will be just us versus her with Chaos Clouds all over the place. Okay. Of course, we degenerate quite some stuff, and nope. Now it was time to move out, and that is the sound of loot. And then we restore our zombie army back to what it was. And we actually need to get some corpses up. Like that. And that was Megara, I have to say. I was expecting her to be a bit more difficult. But, well, that's always a pleasant surprise if a map boss is not as difficult as you had expected it to be. So from here on out, it's gonna be cleaning up the map, and let's not get hurt by those fire traps here. But of course, burning damage is still really painful for a build like this. Can we port over there? No, we can't. Any place without desecrated ground? Yeah, up here. Okay. And then we move forwards. So my plan of running the Breach Lords as the final content for our series is of course not really going to work out. Because, well, we're no longer in the Breach League. My reasoning for putting them all the way at the end is that most of the new boss content that has been added to the game has been rather difficult compared to the level that it's at. And as such, I was very cautious with it. And I know the elemental Breach Lords, their areas are at level 70. But given the fact that dealing with breaches and killing things quickly is not really not really the strong point of this build. This really is just a slow going map clearing build, but it plays at its own speed rather than at the speed dictated by a breach timer. So the higher level we were, of course, the more skills we had, the better gear we had, the higher level gems we had, and as such the better chance we would have of actually completing one of those encounters. And as I say, the difficulty of those encounters tends to be a bit higher than you would expect based on the level. I mean, things like Malachi, level 70 area, but I don't think a lot of people do him at level 70 unless they got a truly powerful build. And this build gets the job done, but it is not an insane powerhouse. Never was the design. It was simply a fun niche build to play. Now, for that reason, I postponed it as far as possible. Figured, let's hit level 90, get at least one of my goals out of the way. And then in the last week, do some of the more riskier encounters until either we die or we run out of time in the league. Now, well, death happened before we could do any of those things, but that means, of course, we can have some fun here in Standard. We'll see if we can at least get to the red maps. Upside is, of course, we have red maps up until, I think I saw tier 13, so that's the third tier red map. Yeah, we can at least try. Not gonna say we're gonna do them, we're gonna clear them or anything, but we can at least try to clear them. Let's see just how far we can get. So yeah, for now that's going to be the agenda for this series. And then, of course, with the next league, I'm gonna start a new character and play in the Legacy League. Which is also something I'm looking forward to. I'm really curious to see how it's gonna play. We missed a bit up there. And we missed a bit down here. I'm currently leaning towards trying a trapper or a mine layer of sorts, because that's a build type I haven't played yet. I've mentioned it a couple times, I think, while playing this character, that I was thinking about that, doing some sacred crafting, things like that. So unless new gems get announced that look really, really juicy, probably gonna try that build. And I think for 3.0 new gems have been, but it's been announced that new gems are gonna come. Just don't know which ones. Also, this was a decoy because there's actually a dead end wall here, so we need to walk around. So for 3.0, of course, we're gonna play through the entire story. I mean, I'll be in the beta. That's one way or another, I will be in the beta. So I'll be playing through the storyline there. And for that, I'll probably just play on standard, just so we can explore everything that the new storyline will have to offer, discover how the new boss fights work, gauge the difficulty, and of course it's a beta, there's gonna be imbalances, there's gonna be bugs, there's gonna be all kinds of things. So no, there's no point in doing that in hardcore, because you're just setting yourself up for frustration. I think that we did a reasonable job. We have 22 mobs remaining, but well, they are just the lucky duckies. That was that. So, oh, we might have died, but death is not the end. Luckily, Path of Exile's hardcore mode just downgrades you to standard league. And then we can continue. So I hope you enjoyed this run through the cells. Next episode, we're gonna step it up to a tier 8 map. And we'll see how far we can. Oh, where will we run into the point where our damage output is just not scaling along with boss fights and things like that, or our survivability could also become an issue. We have a very large life and energy shield pool, but the drawback for that is we are set up for hit and run attacks. We don't have any form of life leech. We have a large energy shield pool, and we use Zealot's Oath to just slowly regenerate it over time. We use our health flasks to regenerate our life pool, but that's it. We can't really do much more. So if we are under sustained attack, our energy shield is just gonna stay at 0 and regenerate the, 200 or so points that we're regenerating now. Yeah, see, 240. And if our golem falls away, of course, we lose about 100 of that. So there is a limit to how much we can sustain, so we really need the space to move around, regenerate our energy shield, and we rely on our minions to distract the enemy and provide us with a bit of a buffer. So in the previous episode, in that breach, you saw if that is not possible, we die rather quickly. So that's definitely a known problem. But I know that some of the red maps, particularly the one where you face the warbands leaders in a very, very small arena, that can be really nasty. The volcano map with all the totems, that's pretty doable. Fighting the corrupted version of Vol in the Wasteland, very much looking forward to that one actually, because he has very strong life leech, and we rely on minions to keep him occupied, and then on the Costa Clouds to degenerate him. But if he keeps leeching life from the minions, and we keep trying to do damage to them. Where is the balance gonna be? Very curious to see how that is gonna turn out. But yeah, we'll see just how viable this build is for the higher tier yellow and the lower tier red maps. But that's all gonna be for future episodes. For now, I'm gonna thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye bye.